Football's back. I had to get a special guest. We've got Uncle Graham in the building. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yo, sweet. I can hear you on my end. Can you hear me? Just to make sure.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I can hear. Nice to speak to you again. Haven't seen you for a while. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. And like you said, we haven't spoken for a while. The Lord knows there's been a lot of football and a lot of football concerning Arsenal. That's what I want to jump straight into, man. How have you been feeling about Arsenal this season to date?
I'll be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed, DG. I just don't think we've been able to get any sort of momentum into our season. And as a result, with all the suspensions, the injuries, and I think we haven't been playing so well this season. I don't think we've been as efficient in front of goal. I think we've had problems in attack. I don't think we've been defending so well. I don't think we've been pressing like we were last year. We haven't been able to suffocate teams, keep them pinned in. Obviously, Odegaard's a big reason why that is. I don't think we press so well without Odegaard. And now he's back, of course. But I just don't think everything's been running smoothly in the ship, mate. And I think just wonder what's going on at times. You know, some of the football I've seen this year isn't been as how can I say, as assured as last season, and that's been reflected in the results.
You said a lot there, and I'm happy you touched on a lot of points because this is all of what I wanted to go over. First thing, you mentioned momentum. Why do you think we haven't been able to gain any momentum?
I think there's a number of factors. I think there's been a lot of football played over the last few years with international tournaments. The players had another tournament in the summer, and a lot of our players are involved in that. I know a lot of other teams have players involved in that, but that was, I think, one of the reasons. Straight back into a new season. I think right from the start, we didn't invest, I think, in the areas of the team we should have done. I think you have to go back to that window. It was really underwhelming for me. I didn't think. Yep. I know Calafiori is a great defender, but I don't think defender was where we needed strengthening. I think it was more in the attack, and we didn't do that. And I think he's bought an attacker he doesn't trust. He's not. I mean, Sterling has been barely used, and I think that tells you everything. So I don't think we had a great window. I don't think we strengthened. This was a season I thought we had to do that because we were so close last year. We got the right starters over the line when we got in the season with real momentum. We didn't do that. We weren't able to do that. And then, of course, after winning the first two games, and I was really positive after the Villa result because that was a good win to go there and win. And then we went into that Brighton game, and then the Declan Rice sending off, and from then it's been sort of like all downhill with sort of refereeing decisions. I think have influenced 5 of 15 games in a row, which led to us getting poor results. We've had suspensions, we've had injuries, whereas last year in that back end of last season when we were on that fantastic run of 17 wins in 19, we could put out virtually the same team every week. And this year we've had lots of injuries, defence, Ben White. Now Ben White's gone for another 8 weeks. Saliba sending off, unsettled the centre-half partnership. Declan Rice sent off, and we lost him. But then the real key thing for me was Odegaard. And, of course, add to that, Bukayo Saka's been struggling with injuries. He's doubtful again tomorrow. I think he's trained okay today. But we've just had a lot of suspensions, a lot of injuries. He's had to change the way we play and the way we build up because with Odegaard there, the way he reinvented a position for Odegaard last season, the way he was sort of like building the play from deep and then getting up high to support the attack, with that triangle on the right-hand side. He's the one creative spark we've got. And I think one of the things that really pissed me off, right, and I said this at the time, mate, was when he decided to let Vieira and Smith Rowe go at the start of the season, I was concerned that we weren't getting someone in. I remember saying that. I was at a game talking to the guy I sit next to in the stadium, we haven't got, if Odegaard was to get injured or we were to lose Saka, who's coming in to replace these players? Because I thought Vieira was being sort of like, the way he was playing Vieira pre-season, I know he's no Saka replacement, but he was playing him on the right a lot. I thought he was possibly thinking of Vieira going to the right side if Saka got injured. And also, I think with Odegaard, who was going to play there? And everyone was telling me it was going to be Nwaneri because Nwaneri was the one he had faith in, but he didn't show that faith in the last few weeks when probably we needed to sort of like, if he was the one who was lined up to replace Odegaard, that's what he should have done. He should have put him there. But what he done was he's sort of like played, he's played like a mixture of Havertz playing centre forward but drifting over to the right hand side. If you look at every pitch map at the end of a game, Havertz is always on that right hand side. He's not down the middle playing in the centre forward role. So when we cross the ball into the box, we haven't got a centre forward to cross it into. He's not there, no. And the other thing he's done, I think, is he tried to sort of like have Trossard in the Odegaard sort of role, on the other side. And Trossard hasn't got the same intensity in his game that Odegaard's got. So I think a lot of the good components of why we were doing so well last year were taken away from us. And included in that was obviously the suspensions and the unsettling of we had to keep changing the team around. As a result, I've got some figures down here.
Let's have them.
Yeah. So, for example, we've dropped 14 points from the last 19 league games, right? And just 5 from the previous 20. And we haven't had a clean sheet now for 7 games. And I think that has been because of the unsettling of not being able to play the same team week in, week out. All teams get injuries, but we've had key injuries and we've also had suspensions. I also think that we've been, we get a rough deal from the officials. And my theory on that is, I think it goes back to last season, when Arteta ripped into the officials after the Newcastle game. And to be honest with you, with good reason, because that was ridiculous, that decision when the ball
went out,
and they allowed the cross to come in. Then Gabriel was fouled. We lost that game. He was really pissed off. He called it a disgrace, and I think that's led to, in my opinion, a lot of the decisions going against us. I think referees can't wait now to punish Arsenal. And I think we are refereed different to other clubs. That's part of it, mate. I just think that this season for me, we just haven't got going. And I'm just waiting, hoping now, starting with this fixture tomorrow at Nottingham Forest, that we can get a result and get a win and start building some momentum. Because if we don't soon, we're going to be, at the moment, I think we're not in the title race. We're 9 points off the top, and it's not just that we're 9 points off the top; it's the way we're playing. And I think he's under pressure now, Arteta, because the reason why he's under pressure is, I think, because he's built up the expectation because we've had 2 good seasons, went really close last year. But what's happened now is Arne Slot has come in at Liverpool, and all of a sudden from nowhere, he's in his first season, he's taken them to the top, and they are starting to look the real deal. And if he was to get over the line this year, I think that's going to reflect badly on Arteta. So, I just think we need to get a result and get some momentum and start building some momentum and getting some results going again, because if we don't soon, we'll be being left behind,
I think you're bang on the money, Graham. You mentioned pressure, yeah. How much pressure do you think Mikel Arteta is under? Because as you said, he's built the expectation. I think every Arsenal fan, even his harshest critic, can, applaud him for the kind of rebuild. But now it's about getting over the line. So the fans know it. The media can't wait to lump in on Arsenal. But internally at the club, because as you said, we didn't have the summer transfer we would have liked. The man got a 3-year deal, if I'm not mistaken, before we kicked the ball this season. So how much pressure do you think he really is under to win a Premier League or whatever?
I think he's under pressure to deliver a trophy. I think he is under pressure. I do think that. I think that obviously, I think he would have built up some respect. I think he's loved in the club. But I think when you're manager of a big club, and he's been there, he put the pressure on himself, I think, because he talked about this 5-year plan, didn't he? And I think this is year 5. So I think if he doesn't deliver in year 5, I think there are going to be questions asked. And I think he will be under pressure. Obviously, the Edu going is not ideal either. He's gone at a time when, it almost adds to the uncertainty about what's going on in the club. So I do think he's under pressure. And the end of the day, the people that ultimately decide are the fans. If you think back to the end of the Wenger era, at the moment, I think the fans are right behind him. I'll be at the stadium tomorrow. You'll hear just how behind him they are. And I think, although there's a lot of influences on social media and people in the media talking about the pressure he's under, I think the fans in the stadium have a big voice, because all the time they're supporting the manager in the stadium and they're turning up and putting bums on seats, and Arsenal getting the revenue. The manager is, in my eyes, safe. But you saw at the end of the Wenger reign, people started speaking by not taking their seats in the stadium.
Even Unai Emery, really, truly.
Yeah, and with Emery as well. So, but I do think he's under pressure. You don't manage when you manage a big club like Man United, Liverpool, Man City and Arsenal. I won't say Tottenham, but when you manage a big club, mate, expectations are high, and if you're not delivering, you're going to be under pressure and you're going to be questioned. And I think he'll get I think, more latitude than some clubs. We are like that as a club, aren't we? But I just think if he doesn't deliver this year, if we don't get a trophy, even if we finish in the top four, I think with this group of players he's got a great set of players, hasn't he? I think that there will be questions asked, and I think back to the season. Do you remember the season when he didn't get top four, and basically we looked like we can get top four, and then it all unravelled at the end, and we fell apart. Yeah, and he did say, didn't he? We had that Amazon documentary about the season. He did say he was thinking about quitting, didn't he? Because he basically said, if I don't think I'm good enough for this job, I'm going to go. So, and I just wonder what he'd be thinking if this season turns out to be not the season that he would have hoped. Because I can remember being in the stadium at the end of last season when they did the presentations after the season. When after he was on the pitch, he took the microphone, and you could see the resolve in his eyes that that this club deserves the title. Next year we're going to go again, and you could see that he thought that next year would be the year for this group, and he told the fans to stick with the group, and we will deliver. Can't remember the exact words, but I remember what he said.
Odegaard
what he meant.
said similar comments as well, and the
Odegaard
Josh
said it as
Kroenke
well.
said that as well.
So someone like this season, with the expectation that came from the end of last season, it's almost like we're doubly determined to win it next year now. And at the moment, after 12 league games, I think, is it 12 or 11? I can't remember. It's not looking as though we're there, are we? It's not just a case of the points behind. It's the performances in the game.
It's like there's been regression.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, aren't they? And so I just think with Odegaard back now, and I did think there was an improvement to Odegaard back against Chelsea.
Yeah, there was.
I know he's lost White, but I think we'll line up. If he can line up tomorrow with Calafiori might be back. Calafiori, Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, and then I think the midfield three tomorrow. It'd be interesting where Declan Rice plays with that toe injury, but he still have a pretty good midfield with either Partey, Mourinho, Odegaard, or Rice, Mourinho, Odegaard, whoever he decides to go. And then he's got his three main attackers back. So against a very good Nottingham Forest side, let's not forget they are the same point as us at the moment, so we can't underestimate them.
Ex-Spurs gaffer as well.
Yeah. So he's. The team have got to go on a run now and start delivering. And if they don't, and then we fall away, I'm just wondering what the reaction is going to be in the fan base and around the club, because you already see it now. Every week when I watch a preview show, it's always like, is this a must-win for Arsenal? If they lose this, are they out the title race? It's becoming like a
every week.
Every week, mate. Yeah.
I think you're bang on the money, Graham. Obviously, you've touched on it, and I agree with everything you say, especially around the way we're playing. Like, I do think sometimes it sounds silly to say, but you could lose a lot of games, but the performance could suggest there's light at the end of the tunnel. Likewise, as you know, winning games, papers, cracks. You look at Emre's unbeaten run. But some people always are quick to tell me that, we did have similar struggles in terms of our creativity last season. Like, do you buy into the rhetoric that we're kind of purposely just trying to get through games so that we can kick on to gear later on in the year? That's what some fans say.
No, I don't buy into that at all. I watch the team, and I just don't think, we've been as good around the box for whatever reason. I mean,
if we're ever in it.
I think Odegaard, obviously missing 10 to 12 games is a massive factor, and we didn't buy anyone when we let certain players go. Obviously, he didn't trust Smith Rowe, did he? And he didn't trust Vieira, so I understand that. But if you're going to let him go, get someone in who you do trust, maybe. Get somebody in, and he didn't. So he left us short. And I think what I've seen over the last few weeks is an over-reliance on Bukayo Saka. And if Saka is shackled, and bearing in mind now, he's up against not 2v1s every time, it's 3v1s.
Like 10 players, really.
Yeah, everyone said that Cucurella shackled Saka in that Chelsea game. I thought it was a case of you had Cucurella, you had Lavia, and you had Neto, and then you had Colwill coming across. It was almost like four of them coming over to the area where he was. So I think people have worked out, if you stop Saka, maybe you stop Arsenal. And I know it's coincided with Odegaard not being available in that right-hand sided triangle of White, Odegaard, and Saka being disturbed. But I think there was a brief period just before the Odegaard injury when Calafiori came in, and that left-hand side was getting better with Calafiori, Rice, and Martinelli, and we weren't quite so dependent on Saka down that right-hand side. It was, normally I think we go something like 55% of the players down the right-hand side, and only about 25 to 30% down the left-hand side. So that left-hand side was starting to look better early in the season, but then quickly with the Calafiori injury, it faded again. He doesn't seem to trust Zinchenko anymore, and now he's brought out a book, really telling all the secrets of the talking. Yeah, I think he's basically I think his days at Arsenal are numbered now that book's come out, because Arteta won't like that.
Yeah.
So Zinchenko's not trusted so much. And it's funny, really, that the two players that he brought in who actually took us to that new level 2 years ago were Zinchenko and Jesus, and both of them now almost
on borrowed time.
They are, yeah, you're right, and I don't think he sees them as probably part of his future plans. So. Look, I just think with the creativity thing, I just don't think teams have sort of like, as Arteta himself has said, when you play in a certain way and you sort of like the way you build up, teams get to know the way you play, and teams sit in low blocks. A lot of teams in mid blocks or low blocks, and Arsenal have not been able to, without Odegaard, be able to go through to the middle of the pitch so much and be able to open teams up. So basically, what you're finding now is, as you saw in the Inter Milan game, Arsenal slinging 30, 40 crosses into the box. That's not an Arsenal team, is it? So I just think, I'm just hoping with Odegaard coming back, he's such a key player. The vision he's got, the ability he's got to sort of like create space and work magic in and around the box. Just the right ball, the right weight of pass, and he sees things that other players don't. Maybe that will give us something. And sometimes in games, if you get the first goal and then you get ahead in the game, it changes the way teams play against you. That then opens up more space, and then you can sort of like take advantage of that. But I just think, I've been slightly disappointed because in the games against Liverpool and Chelsea, we were in front in both those games, against Liverpool twice. And both times against Liverpool, we got pegged back, and also against Chelsea, we got pegged back. But, in answer to your original point, is we just haven't seemed to have got any momentum into our season. And I know there's still a long way to go in the season. So it can change, and I'm just hoping it will.
I think you're bang on the money in that. I think in the same way, if we were flying in these 10, 11, 12 games, we'd be just talking and singing the praises. I think it's healthy dialogue, because it is our third attempt at trying to win the title. He has been here 5 years, and it kind of feels for me like we regress, especially with the way we play through central areas or lack of the crossing, the side to side. I'm not against any of these things isolated, but it just feels like we kind of set up to kind of harm ourselves. And I want to know how you feel. Do you think Mikel Arteta is, I know there's been suspensions and injuries, but do you think he's kind of masterminded his own issues, probably overcomplicating things?
I don't think he is. I mean, I don't think I can answer that question, whether he's overcomplicated things. I think that I always think he's trying to evolve the team. That's one thing I will say about him. I always feel as though he's trying to evolve the way we play. So when you're always trying to evolve the way you play, you are reliant on your best players being part of that. And if they're not, I think that obviously means it's harder for him to implement. So if you haven't got such good players, to play you where you want to play, the players who you trust to do it, and you're putting in players who probably are not first choice or players who are not quite so good at it, it's probably not going to be as efficient. I think it's a case of up front we are incredibly light. I think in terms of we haven't got I think 100%. We need another forward player. I know Havertz is like his go-to man there, and Havertz had a great season back end of last season. And he hasn't been bad this season, to be fair, at the start, although he has suffered since Odegaard's been out. But I just think we needed another attacking player down the middle, somebody who he could rotate with, or you know, somebody who could come in and play a role, and he hasn't got that. So I think Martinelli, obviously, he also had injuries at the start of the season, and he was lacking in form. Has started to get a bit more form back, but I still don't see the Gabriel Martinelli of 2 years ago. I'll be honest with you.
Is it a concern for you with Martinelli? Because I agree with you. For me, it's the decision making above all with
yeah.
Martinelli.
I think, you know, the thing he's got raw pace, isn't he? So when he's not in the team, you know, you miss that. But I think you are 100% right there. What you said is decision making at times. Whereas 2 years ago, he seemed to be sort of like more often not making the right decision. This season, whether it's a lack of confidence, whether it's because he's coming back from injury or whatever it is, I don't think it's there so much. So he hasn't been as efficient as what you would like. So I look at that Liverpool front line. I just think there's lots of goals across it, and I just think there's lots of, you know, I know Salah's the main man, but you know, you look at the Luis Diaz, you look at Gakpo, who comes on and does his stuff, and Nunes. I know he's inconsistent, but he's scoring as well. And you had Jota and season. They've got four top quality forwards, so they can 4 or 5 top quality forwards, so they can rotate, and that's what we haven't got. I don't think we got the same level of goal scoring killer instinct that they've got, and that's reflected in the way that they're able to sort of like score goals the way they have
in games ultimately.
Yeah. So going back to your original point, is it down to him overcomplicating things? I can't. I'm not sure. I don't think it is. I just think there's all those factors I talked about earlier that the reason why the team has stalled in its in what it's delivered on the pitch this year. You know, I just think I don't think the team's been overconfident. I just think it's been hit by a number of factors, a number of, you know, if you've got something that works really well, and you've got like players who rotate, and fluidity that they forge through playing week in, week out is disturbed, and there's too many pieces of the chessboard missing, the jigsaw missing. Sorry, it does make it more difficult, and I think that's been part of the reason. I think also one thing we have to factor in is I think we've had a very difficult start to the season in the away games. We played some really big, tough games away from home, and all back to back. So and football is momentum. You know, if you're you know, if and also when you're playing the teams, you know, if I think back to early in the season, Newcastle were really struggling at the start of the season. When we played them, they just got on a little roll again, and they are back, you know, as you know, up to about 6th or 7th in the Premier League now, 8th I think it is. But they are back to the Newcastle of last season. In the season, they looked a pale shadow of that. We're going to be playing Man United the week after next with the new manager in. If we played Man United a few weeks ago, when they were struggling under
it's a given,
Ten Hag, yeah, I think we could have won that. But now it's going to be more difficult. You know, you know, even the Man City fixture, when you think about it, over the last couple of weeks, Man City have had major injuries themselves. You know,
so I know
Rodri's been out for the season, and that's another factor in it. The fact that Rodri was going to be out for the season is almost like everyone was thinking. Arsenal fans were thinking, well, this is the moment now because they've lost Rodri, their most important player for the season. But Rodri's been out. De Bruyne's only just coming back. He doesn't look 100% fit. Then they've had a real injury crisis in defence. They've lost Stones. They've lost Diaz. Ake's only just coming back. So they had a lightweight defence, and they were playing one of their under-21 players in the middle of the defence in those 2 games where they lost in a week, one in Europe and the league game at Brighton. So, and then, of course, I can't believe I've seen a Man City team the other week on the pitch under Pep where he was playing a midfield player on the left wing because he had no winner.
Normally, because he had no other bodies.
He has a luxury in those wide positions where if Grealish is not fit, he plays Doku, but he had neither of them. You know, so you know, we played Man City. When we played Man City, it wasn't the Man City of the last couple of weeks, was it? So, but you know, we can only look at ourselves, and we haven't been good enough for whatever reason. And you know, there's lots of reasons why that we've been talking about this afternoon. You know, and but I just think that the expectations level was so high at the start of this season, on the back of what we did at the back end of last season, and now this was his 5th season. That, you know, that's why I feel underwhelmed, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans feel the same.
I feel you on that, Graham, and I do as well. It's like it was a bit weird in that obviously at the time of when Mikel Arteta came to the club, we was obviously disgruntled as fans. We wanted to kind of be in the conversations we are now, but it's like not that you could accept it, but you could accept that we weren't being how we was. Now our imagination has been aroused. We're finally fighting for the title. As much as it's negative, there's numerous good things Arteta's done, and it's like we're so close, but yet so far. Like for me, this season was about the fine margins because we know typically we can defend well, we can score goals. We've got a good squad. It was just those fine margins. It was just, we missed out by 2 points. And I don't feel off the back of the summer, we done what we needed to do to kind of close that gap, whether that's a striker, a winger, or a central midfielder. So it is somewhat disappointed. I kind of want to stick on central midfield. Do you feel the creative issues at the club are just simply solved by Odegaard being in or out of the side? Or do you think regardless of Odegaard and his quality, there's deeper underlying issues there?
I think that we've got if you look at the midfield we've got some very good midfield players. I think Thomas Partey has been exceptional this year, and I still rate Thomas Partey. I think he's very good. Declan Rice, he's a top quality midfielder. Mourinho, who was in the Spanish team that won the Euros, and who he highly regards. Who, let's face it, could add value on that left-hand side because he's left-footed, so that will help that left-sided 8 role, which Jaffe used to play. So I think we got some very good midfield players. And if you look at Liverpool have got like what I'd call, they haven't got really creative midfield players. I know Szoboszlai can play 10, but if you look at it, a lot of them, like Gravenberch is a 6, McAllister is not, he's not a 10, is he? He's 6/8. And then I'm trying to think of the other player they play in midfield at the moment. The name escapes me, but they haven't got
Jones and people like that.
Curtis Jones, yeah. I mean, I know he's in the England squad now, but I wouldn't say they've got massive, real attacking midfield players. Liverpool have always had they've won the league with a hard-working defence that just got the ball quickly, got the ball quickly to their front line when they had the likes of Salah, Firmino and Mane, for example. So I just think that it's been a case, I think, of how the midfield's set up now for him. I think he has to decide who he's going to play at 6. And I think he has to decide who he's going to play at 8 on the left-hand side, with Odegaard obviously nailed on the right-hand side. I think it's a case of getting the balance of the midfield right more than the creativity, because I think you can be really efficient and have quality in your midfield. It doesn't have to be, like all creativity, like England. Remember when England under Ericsson played Scholes, Lampard and Gerrard in one team? They were the most creative players in England, but it didn't work, did it? Because you didn't have it wasn't the right balance. I think midfield, you've got to have creativity, and certainly in one player, and someone who can come in and replicate what that player does. But I think the midfield for me is all about balance. Midfield is such an important part in a football team, because you get hold of the midfield, you can dominate a game.
It's where the game's played.
You get control of the game, don't you? So I think you need a really good DM. I think you need either a double pivot, or if you're going to go 4-3-3, someone who can play a single pivot, who's got good recovery pace, who can cover the ground. And then you need 2 good quality number 8s. If you're playing the 3, if you're playing a double pivot, you play 2 good quality midfielders who are very good positionally, who can recycle, take the ball, build attacks, recycle, and get the ball into 4 positions quickly. And you have a number 10 behind the front line. It's all about the right balance of how you want to play, and the players you've got who can play in that sort of system. So I think he has got creative midfielders in the way that he wants to construct the midfield. I just think he needs to get the balance right. And I think at the moment, I'm not sure Declan Rice is working on the left-sided 8 role. I think he's more suited to the 6. But the problem he's got is that Partey is also a 6. Don't think he's so good at 8. And so I think he's going to have to make a decision in the next few weeks who he wants at 6, because I think Mourinho... Yeah, I think it probably will be Rice, but Mourinho, to me, because he's got that left foot and he's able to take the ball on the turn, and he's able to sort of like get the ball quickly, pass it through the lines quickly. I think that he's going to take that 8 role, and I think Odegaard will be on the other side. So I think I can see the midfield becoming Rice, Mourinho, Odegaard. And there's enough creativity in that midfield. Obviously, Rice can't pass through the lines like Partey, but he's very good at 6. Mourinho's a very good passer, and also he makes good runs into the box, and he's a good duel winner. And that Odegaard's creativity, that to me is a good creative midfield. The only thing so like Partey and Rice are your 2 number 6s who should be competing for that role. He just needs, I think, somebody who can replicate what Odegaard does. And I know it's difficult because Odegaard is such a unique player, but we've got to have someone with a bit more creativity. And I think really he has to start, if he's not going to bring someone in January, and I know it's very difficult to bring someone in January, he's going to have to start trusting Wanyeri, who, albeit in League Cup games where it's not such high intensity, has shown flashes of unique talent and ability that is the closest we've got to Odegaard at the moment. And the choice he's got to make is, does he sort of like bring someone in who can play that sort of the style that Odegaard plays in, or does he change the way we play? And then if he's going to play Trossard in that position, he plays a 2 up front. Maybe he changes the front, because I don't think Trossard can play in that position where Odegaard plays. And I don't think he's so good out wide. I think he either has to play off a striker. Or he changes something, he gets someone else in, who can play off a striker or whatever. But just come back to your original question. I think that we have got creativity in our midfield. I just don't think we've got somebody who can replicate what Martin Odegaard does. And that's, for me, when I've watched the games of late, because I think the whole dynamic of the team has been built around Odegaard. I think if you think back to last season,
he's the nucleus of our team, really.
He is. He's the captain. He's like the manager on the pitch,
Yeah,
and
exactly. We'll see him do that and whatnot.
If you remember back last year, I think I talked to you about this last time I was on with you, but he totally redefined the position of Martin Odegaard. And Martin Odegaard became like an all-phase midfield player. He would sort of like come deep to build the attacks when we played out from the back, to obviously escape from being pressed so he could build through the lines. And then he would sort of like, he would get up high on the right-hand side to support the right-hand side triangle. And also he could drift inside into the number 10 position and sort of like create with a ball through the middle. So he was involved in all phases of play. And so where do you find a player who can do that as well as him? When you rebuilt the team round the way Odegaard played. So it became a challenge. You had to find a new way to play this year with Odegaard out. We got away with it for a few weeks, but I think over the last few games before Odegaard come back, it was starting to show that we were struggling without him in the team.
What have you made of Mikel Moreno? Because I actually feel there's been too much extremes with him. I feel when he was signed, obviously, there was a lot of talk about you're going to replace Xhaka, you're the final piece to the puzzle, etc. And I do think some fans, whether it's on social media or fans I speak to, have written him off. I think he's only been poor when the whole team's been poor. He is adapting. I do, however, think he's a floor raiser versus a ceiling raiser, but I think he's a good player and he'll show it. He had a good game against Liverpool and a good cameo against Chelsea. But what have you made of him?
Yeah, I think he's you got to remember he's coming to a different league.
Exactly.
From the league, and the intensity of the Premier League is totally different to the
and
league.
Got injured.
Yeah, so I think, although he's played here before, of course, when he was at Newcastle, wasn't he, originally?
Yeah.
I've seen, like you, I think you've summed him up pretty well there. He had a really good performance against Liverpool and a good little cameo against Chelsea. And I saw signs in that Chelsea game of really why we bought him. The ability to take the ball in the half turn, to be able to sort of like play through being press resistant, to be able to sort of like, and to not, because he's left footed, to be able to move the ball quickly out to that left hand side and get Martinelli on the ball. So I think I've seen already why he bought him and why he could be a benefit to the team. And I think he's improving. So I think people are always going to, I think he's being judged because he's like, a lot of people see him as like Mikel's boy because he's a Spaniard. And I think that's a bit harsh.
Same name as well.
And I just think people have, and also I think because people obviously, I can remember last year when we had that midfield at the start of last season, Rice, Odegaard, Partey, that was the midfield everyone was crying out for. Xhaka had gone and Rice was playing more 8 when Partey played 6, although there was injuries last season. So I think Rice did play the first half of the season at 6, I think more. but I think everyone liked that midfield. I think that obviously a lot of people were underwhelmed because of maybe it was only a 30 million signing, and also because of people wanted to see attackers come in. People wanted, because we were being linked with attackers all through the summer, and people were talking about maybe left hand, somebody who can play across the front line, or someone who can play on the left hand side. People wanted upgrades, didn't they?
Exactly.
Thinking, but it's always we just couldn't get any of the deals done for whatever reason, and so ultimately I think that hasn't helped Mikel Mourinho, because he was being judged against the fact that we didn't really get what we needed to get, and people didn't see that as a priority, and people see him as somebody who's just Mikel's favourite because of where he comes from. So, but he's a good footballer, and I think sometimes it's not just about having the flash players in your team. It's all about getting the right components to make the team play better.
Competent footballers.
And I think you just got to be a little bit patient with him, but at the same time, you can't be too patient, because we're trying to win trophies here, and so I think he'll play tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see a good performance.
Where are you at with Kai Havertz beyond the obvious? Because I agree with you in that, I don't think he's done any bad. Personally, I think he would benefit if we created a lot more chances. But I do think we've drawn enough blood from that stone. I think in the role he is quite at the moment, I think he's gone as far as he kind of could. But if we were to sign a striker, where does that place Kai Havertz? Because surely there might be more case of him playing in midfield, and he is on like 200 grand a week. Do you feel that's a problem in itself if we do upgrade?
What the money's being paid?
Yeah, the money's being paid, and his role in the team, because it would go from surely being a rotationary option, or might have to play in midfield a lot more than up front if we sign a forward.
I think the funny thing about it was last season that he actually bought him to play him on the left side of midfield, and he wasn't bought as a centre forward. And he started the first game in the Community Shield at centre forward, and played quite well there actually when we sort of beat them on penalties. And he only really I think Mikel never saw him originally as a forward, as strange as that seems, because he played forward for Chelsea, didn't he? Although at Leverkusen he played on the wings, I think, and more sort of attacking midfield or in a wide area, as strange as that seemed. But he's now the centre forward for Germany, isn't he? That's the position he plays for his national team. So the fact, if you're playing up front for Germany, you've got to be, you think that you've got a top forward on your hands there. So I think with him, I think what happened was at the end of last season, really bit of luck for Mikel, because there was injuries. He had to play him there, and all of a sudden it clicked there, and so he had a really good end to last season. And he started off the season again at centre forward. And to be fair, at the start of the season, he was doing all right. He had that run of goals at the Emirates where I think he called Van Persie's record of 7 straight games scoring at the Emirates. So, and he was scoring. Where he's been slightly unlucky, I suppose, in a way, both of them, is that with the Odegaard injury, it changed the role of Havertz. Although he was still playing
dynamics,
because although he was still playing as a centre forward, he was more drifting over to the right hand side. He was playing like, at times he was an 8, at times he was playing like a 10. So he wasn't playing as an out and out centre forward. So his role and his positioning in the team changed when Odegaard got injured. So we never know what would have happened had Odegaard stayed fit and he carried on playing down the middle. But for all that, you look at what we've got, what the other top teams have got, and we are incredibly reliant for goals from Bukayo Saka. Too reliant, yeah, absolutely. So it tells you that we haven't got enough attacking power. We need a killer, somebody who's got a bit of pace as well. I think I think we needed to. At times you need to mix it up a bit, so you can. It's a team game, it's a squad game. Havertz doesn't have to play every single game. But if you've got somebody of his level or above who's suited to certain games, you play them. And it's a bit like Pep. Foden, when I know he's more nailed in the team he's not so nailed in the team this year, has he? He took a while to get into it, but he has been. But there was a time at City when you had so many quality wide players, they weren't dropped, they were just rotated. They all understood. It helped that they were all on good wages, of course, and as you rightly say, Havertz on a massive wage. But I think that there's no reason why we couldn't have brought another forward in. I know he's incredibly loyal to Havertz. I hear that from people I know who go to press conferences who say he's incredibly loyal the way he speaks about Havertz and the way he treats Havertz. It's almost like Havertz is his man. Whether that's true or not, obviously I can only.
I think he is. I think they're right. Whoever told you that, Graham, man. He said he would go to war. Havertz is someone that will go to war.
I just think that there'd been nothing wrong with getting another forward player and somebody who
absolutely nothing
slightly different to Havertz, or even if you've got somebody slightly similar to Havertz who you can just rotate, and Havertz could play occasionally in midfield if we needed to give a rest to somebody on the left hand side. So where am I with Havertz? I think he's I trust him because basically over the last year he's demonstrated to me he's capable of delivering. Not so good on one-on-ones when he's put through, but in terms of arriving in the box and taking chances, he's scored enough goals in 2024 for me to think, he's capable of doing the job. But I just want to, if we could get an upgrade there, obviously I wouldn't be against it. The debate's going on at the moment who's the better player of him and Gyökeres, isn't it? That's the sort of, I know with the hammer and go to Man United now, you suspect that's where he's going to go.
Yeah, and I do as well for what it's worth.
Unless Chelsea come in and offer him ridiculous money, which is what Chelsea tend to do, don't they?
That could be the one for me, man. But you're talking big bucks.
But what annoyed me was, in the season, we were linked to Sesko, weren't we? And I must admit, when I watched him in the Euros, I wasn't overly impressed. But we were linked to him and he wouldn't come. The reason he said he weren't going to come was because of Havertz. Because he seemed to think that Havertz was going to be playing that role all the time. There's nothing wrong, as we've seen at Liverpool. Liverpool got like Jota and Nunes competing for one position. They've got Gakpo and Diaz competing for one position.
As you said, there's a lot of games.
There's a lot of games. You're right, mate. So, but I just think we're a bit light in that forward area. But Havertz overall, he underwhelmed me when he was in midfield. But from January up to September, I was okay with the way he was playing. He was doing all right. Although, albeit, I did want to see another forward player come in during the summer.
I think you're bang on the money. I think Kai Havertz in midfield was horrible to watch. I think since then his fortunes have changed. And that's what I meant earlier when I said I feel we've drawn enough blood from the stone. Isolated to Kai Havertz and him as an individual, I think within your capabilities, you're doing all you can for the team. You're actually one of our most consistent players. You're actually one of the first names on the team sheet. But I agree with you in that simply put, we either need a different option or an upgrade. And that's where we're in issues. And as you said, we are very light in the attacking position. Sorry. Why do you think there's, I don't want to say a reluctance from Mikel Arteta, but maybe a quote-unquote reluctance to go out and move the needle in the final third because he's not afraid to sign midfielders or defenders or even goalies?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, that he seems to sort of like, as much as he's rolled the dice out and he's totally redefined the defence, and that's, with all the defenders he's brought in, and he's obviously brought some good midfielders. He seems reluctant or hasn't been able to go out and improve the attack, in the way that you'd expect. And he moved players on like Aubameyang and Lacazette. Lacazette obviously coming to the end of his, well, he's still got a life in France, hasn't he? But we thought he was getting old in the tooth at the time. He had the fallout with Aubameyang, but we haven't really. The one thing you can say about Aubameyang, when he was prime Aubameyang, was, he took chances, scored goals, and he had that one brilliant season.
There was inevitability about Aubameyang, which I don't think we have at the moment by Saka.
So he hasn't been able to get us what I would call a real. I'm not saying Havertz is not quality, but he hasn't seemed to have been able to improve the attack, has he? Got in to get in the attacking players, and that's almost like a criticism now. It's being levelled at him. I've seen that. I've read about that over the last few weeks. That basically, when it comes to the attack, he hasn't been able to get out there and get in the attacking players you'd think that he'd be interested in to improve the team. So it's a fair debate to have, and it's a fair argument that to be made that he hasn't improved our attack. He's been incredibly reliant on the graduate, who come through the system like Saka, who was there before he arrived, Obviously, even Martinelli was there before he arrived. And obviously, he didn't trust Eddie in the end. He moved Eddie on, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But he hasn't gone out and improved the attack, and for whatever reason, he hasn't been able to get the deals over the line that he wanted. It looks like, because we were linked with Vlahovic, weren't we, a couple of years ago?
Couple of years ago, yeah.
And it seemed like he was interested in him. He couldn't get that deal done. He was linked with Sesko. He couldn't get that deal done. We obviously lost out on Mudryk. Some people say that was a blessing, but he did get the Trossard thing. There's a lot of plan Bs for Arteta in terms of he's not got his main man, but he's got the next in line that he wanted. But yeah, it's a good point. He hasn't really got us that quality forward we need to really take this team forward. A lot of people would argue, of course, there's not a lot of great quality centre forwards out there at the moment, so which is another argument. But if you think about it, two players I saw it online last night who'd really improved this Arsenal team. That's Victor Osimhen, sort of like a centre forward.
Yeah, like and he's over there in Turkey.
He ended up saying that we couldn't afford him, or the wages he was on. He ends up going on loan to Turkey, as you just said, and the Milan winger, is it Leo?
Raphael.
Yeah, Raphael. I said, sorry. Yeah, just imagine having those two players in this Arsenal team.
That would score a lot more goals, man, and be a lot more dangerous.
That would take us to the next level, wouldn't it? Sort of like, and could be the difference between us not winning the league and winning the league. So yeah, I just think it's obvious where we're short, isn't it? It's where we're short up front, really. We talked about the creativity from midfield, but we don't take our chances. And there are times when we're creating enough and we're not taking them. We're not efficient enough. And to be honest with you, he's talked about his press conference today. I've just seen a few headlines from it. He talked about we've not been efficient enough when we've been attacking in front of goal. So he's made that point himself. So he's Arteta, so he's well aware of it.
He's well aware of it, and I hear that, manager. And to be fair, the players have got to take the responsibility. And these were the players, which some were last season and the year before, bagging goals for fun. But I do think our numbers were a bit inflated. I'm not knocking us for our set pieces or the players who scored goals, but I think when you look at how we scored goals last season and the fact that the vast majority of them is Bukayo Saka. Saka's the only one you look at in August and think you're going to be up there for double goals and assists. We couldn't answer the question if Kai, Trossard, and these kind of guys were going to go and do that. So I do think we engineer our own issues. Where I look at the striker thing, I think it's a weird one because I think Mikel Arteta is very peculiar about who plays up there. I know we tried to buy Jesus to score goals, but Jesus is the modern kind of false nine for what Arteta demands. The same could be said for Kai. And I could argue if being prolific was what Arteta wanted or the prerequisite for playing up front, Eddie Nketiah is definitely not playing up front. And it's a bit of a weird one in that playing as a striker for Arsenal is kind of selfless in that you've got to make space for your wingers. As you said, you've got to drop into midfield. At the moment, Kai's pulled to the right. I don't necessarily feel our strikers get the opportunity to be in the box, nor do I think at this moment in time we're creating. Like I always say on my channel, at this moment in time, I think if we had Isaac and Gyökeres, they might have scored more goals. But I still think we'd be having these same conversations because it's not like the back end of last year where I think, what was it, Liverpool in the FA Cup, definitely West Ham at the Emirates, where we was creating a bag of chances and no one could put the ball in the back of the net. So it's a peculiar one. And I think you said something earlier which got my brain thinking. It's like, ideally you'd want a winger and a striker, but if you're going to persist with Kai up front, do you get someone on the left that kind of brings Bukayo Saka numbers, and then you've got Martinelli and these other squad players? As you said, we'd have a stronger team. So it's a bit annoying. Before you get out of here, Graham, I want to answer these two questions from the people in the chat. They said, big up yourself, L Bags, big up DJ in the community, throw a bomber like on the stream. Graham question, do these next 5 to 10 games before Christmas determine our season?
Certainly in the league they do, yeah, obviously. 100%, because we've left ourselves such small margin for error, haven't we? We've literally, when you think we've lost, how many we lost so far? Is it 3?
3, yeah.
2.
We've lost Bournemouth, Newcastle. It feels like we've lost another one. Bournemouth. It might be 2.
It might only be 2, but we've drawn a lot, haven't we? So it does feel like whatever it is, we're 9 points off the lead, and we've got to go to Anfield. And so do you think that we haven't won at Anfield for 12 years? So it could easily be 12, couldn't it? And so there's such small room for error. We have won the league, of course, back in '98 when we were 12 points off the top behind Man United in January, and still won the league. But that's a rarity. So I do think that in answer to that guy's question, the next 10 games are crucial. And then we've got games there in that pack. Like Forest, West Ham, United at home. That we've got to win. There's no doubt about it. We've got to literally, I think, be almost faultless through the next 10 games. Can't afford a defeat. Got to almost, like I would say, take a minimum of 27 out of 30. If we don't do that, of course, I think the league, our chances to win the league will be gone. Having said that, I mean, there's still 3 cups to play for, and I'm not saying the league's not important, but you saw over the last 2 years, I know Ten Hag's ended up getting sacked, but the great irony of it, of course, is, and he always used to boast about it, didn't he? That he's won. There's only Pep that's won more trophies than him in the last 2 years. So, as crap as Man United were, as boring as the football was, as shit as the players were in his system, they still managed somehow to actually win a League Cup 2 years ago and win an FA Cup.
Time, clearly.
Yeah. So we could still have a good season. We could still win a cup. We could win. I don't think people would accept the League Cup as being a great season as much as, I want to see us win all the trophies we're in. But if we weren't, the point I'm trying to make here is, if we don't win, if we don't get a great run in the next 10 games, the league's gone. I do think the way we're playing at the moment, I just can't. I'll just be honest, mate. I just can't see us winning the league. I'll be honest with you, and that's just me being honest. As much as
I'm with you. I can't see.
I want to believe. I want to be positive. I know a lot of people are gonna. In this fan base, you're frightened of sometimes just giving an honest opinion, because if you say that you get accused of being an after-sexual if you're basically giving too much praise. You basically, if you say you're worried you're not going to, you're not playing well enough, you get accused of not being behind the team. You can't win. You're just trying to give an honest opinion, which is all I ever try and do. Yeah, fact. I just can't at the moment, because I've watched all the, as you know, I've been an Arsenal fan for a long time. I've seen a lot of league seasons. Sometimes you just get a vibe, a feel. You just know when a team are not playing well enough, and it's hard to see how it's going to turn around quick enough. So, and you're up against not just Man City this year, you're up against Liverpool who've sneaked into the equation. So I can't honestly see us winning the league this year. But to have any chance, as that guy said, next 10 games, we've got to arrive after 21, 22 league games where we're 3 to 6 points behind the lead. More if it gets to 12 to 14, it's gone, isn't it? So, but there's still the cups to play for. Obviously, the Champions League is. You obviously know that we're not the strongest team in Europe, but you don't have to be the strongest teams in Europe sometimes to win it.
Turn up.
Yeah, but no, it's not that. I mean, if you look at the new format, which I don't like, by the way, that's another topic for another one of your shows probably. But the top of the Champions League at the moment is like the top of the Europa League, isn't it? You look at those 4 teams there; none of them are powerhouses in Europe, apart from Liverpool. From their past record. So, but and Chelsea won the Champions League twice without being the best team in Europe. So you can win the Champions League, even if you're not the best team in Europe. So you can win it, that trophy, although it's going to be a hard ask. And then that just leaves you with the 2 domestic cups, of course. And Man United have proved over the last 2 seasons that you can be shit in the league and still win a domestic cup. So we can still have a reasonable season. But the problem's going to be, DG, and we started this program, your video, your show, talking about the expectations after the last 2 years. It's going to feel like a really poor season. Even if we finish in the top 4 and we win the League Cup, for example, or we don't win a trophy, if we fall away and don't challenge or even win the league, because at the end of the day, we come so close for 2 years. This was going to be the year, wasn't it? And at the start of the show, we were exploring those reasons, the poor window, the injuries, the suspensions, which has led to the drop-off in the momentum and the poor results. But this was the year that we had to do it. And then, of course, we had the news that Rodri was out for the season. Everything seemed to be going our way in terms of if we're going to do it, this is going to be the year. But of course, ultimately, things have gone wrong for the team and the club as well. So we are now where we are. But yeah, going back to that question, I know I've skated around so many issues here, but in answer to his question, the next 10 games, if we're not almost perfect, and I would say we need a 27 out of 30 run, really. I think if we're not, I would say 3 to 6 points off the top, and I would say nearer to 3 than 6. I just can't see us do it. And the reality is, I'm watching us play week in, week out, because you know me, I study the games in the stadium, the tactical things I look for, and I'm just not seeing the smooth rotations and fluidity in the team that I've seen over the last 18 months. And they've still got time to turn it around, of course, and there've been lots of reasons which we've gone into, but at the moment, I just hope you can flip this and they win the league.
I hope so. I'll be with you with that, Graham, man.
I'll be quite happy. I'll be quite happy for it to be clipped, because basically
We'd be happy to be wrong.
I want to be. I'm going to be happy to be wrong and happy to look at a complete tart, you know. So, but you know, I'm just being honest. At the moment, I just don't see it, and I'll go there tomorrow, and I'll be right behind the team, and I'll be desperate for the team to win, and as happy to make my week. My weekend is always ruined or great depending on the Arsenal result. You know, when I come in, my wife knows that if Arsenal have lost, she just stays away from me.
Leave me alone.
Because basically it just ruins your weekend, doesn't it? So, and what's the second question?
The second question, and before we get into it, Graham, I'm so happy you said all of that, because I think a bunch of us, what I call balanced fans, feel the same way. It's like, I know football's an emotional sport, but it's like people want the wool pulled between their eyes and they don't want to see what's in front of them. As you keep saying, it's the performance. If the performance was there and we had the defensive display we had last season and the season before that where we was great in an attacking sense, then we'd be very optimistic. But we cannot currently see light at the end of the tunnel, in which, as you said there, we both want to be wrong. Everyone wants to be wrong. We want to look back and say, oh, why did we lose a bit of faith? But I think you're bang on with that sentiment, man. But the last question for you before I let you get out of here, shout out Oliver. Question for the guest: why do you think he hasn't been able to get his main attacking target? It's a good question, to be fair.
Yeah. Probably it depends who the attacking target was. There's lots of reasons. First of all, I think the targets are the reason why he hasn't, I think, been able to get in a quality attacker is because I don't think there's a real quality in the centre forward market at the moment that you would like to see. So that's part of the reason. Number two, I think you have to remember that where we are in terms of as a club compared to the other clubs vying for these top players. You know, we can't pay them the sort of money that some of the other top clubs can pay them. We're not a Real Madrid, are we? You know, if it was between Arsenal and Real Madrid. And then, of course, there's the other factors. So Arteta likes, I think, to go for forwards who he's going to mould. I don't think he likes the. I know he has bought Trossard, who's slightly older, but I think he wants a young. You know, he's building a young team.
Impressionable
he's trying to build a young team, so he's looking for a young forward who he's going to develop. So, and then he's up against. You know, they look at Arsenal and they think, like Sesko did, and thought, well, he's got Havertz. I'm not going to be his number one choice, so I'm not going there. So that's the reason why he didn't get him. And then you're up against players who might not want to move to England, like the reason why you might not get that striker over the line. There's lots of reasons why a player doesn't come. It has to feel right for the player. It has to be, good, you know, good for his career. So I just, there's probably lots of reasons why he hasn't been able to, but it boils down to the fact that the targets he has gone for, he hasn't been able to get over the line. I'd be interested to know who the other targets are, because you know, we knew he was after Sesko. He didn't get that one over the line. We knew Vlahovic was being linked to the club heavily a couple of years ago, but we don't see him linked to that many actual forwards, do we? So it's
it's always a versatile kind of player.
So in answer to your question, yeah, that's a great point, isn't it? Is he? He doesn't seem to be. I suspect he is. I just don't think you hear about him, but I don't see much evidence of us chasing centre forwards. And people will correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I can't remember or recall that many. over the last couple of years. You've got to remember, his current centre forward, it's not who he brought into the club to be a centre forward. That's the funny thing about it. I mean, he bought Jesus because obviously he had the Man City connection, didn't he? And Jesus has never been the same since the knee injury, to be fair. So, you know, and there's a lack of quality out there. So why can't he? There's lots of reasons why he can't get that forward, I think. Lack of quality. He does, you know, he hasn't seen the one who he thinks can improve the team. Maybe the ones who he wants, he can't get for various reasons. And there's so many factors, you know, whether they want to come to England, other clubs interested, money. There's loads of reasons why you don't get a deal over
sometimes.
And then you might get the greedy agent saying, you know, I want this, I want that.
That's what I feel about Osimhen, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to have Osimhen at Arsenal. If you say to me, give me one player, if they could say, right, I know he's on loan at Galatasaray now, and he went up even more in my estimation when he stuffed Spurs the other week. So, but the thing is, though, if you can say, give me one player, the second half of the season, he'd be the one I want.
For me, it'd be Isaac, man. Even though I know we can't do it, I just think that number 14 is for him.
Have you noticed, actually, mate? While we're talking about forwards, all of a sudden the Isaac thing. That's the other one we were interested in. We were reportedly interested in, although I didn't see it confirmed by Arteta. But Newcastle were never going to sell him. I think that conversation might change in the summer if they don't get Champions League, because I think he wants to play Champions League next year. So we might have an opportunity there, and all of a sudden the word links again suddenly appeared over the last few weeks, where I read somewhere he's meant to have said, Arsenal, come and get me at the end of the season. I don't know how true that is, but is that an upgrade on Havertz for you?
Yeah, man, because he's a cold-hearted killer, and I don't want anyone to misquote me. Just because we signed someone that probably is going to take Havertz's spot, a bit like what Graham said earlier, it doesn't mean Kai Havertz needs to leave and his time's done. But I just love Isaac. I just think he works the channels well. His link-up play, obviously scores goals. He's got a great record against Spurs, and he wears 14, and the number 14 is free here. Take the shirt, man. It would be it for me. But you're talking probably 100 million. He's still got 4 years left on his deal. So unless Newcastle have to sell or he burns bridges, Graham, I don't think we get him.
No, I don't think we get him. But the other thing is, if you think about it, we go back to Mourinho again. Think about Mourinho, Odegaard, and Isaac. That would be almost like
it's a reunion.
Yeah, it's a reunion, isn't it? From Sociedad. Is it Sociedad?
Yeah.
Where did they play? Was it Sociedad? So they all know each other's games, wouldn't they? So that would be something that would work, wouldn't it? If we could get that deal done. I just, you know, and I think we all know, DG, what this team is lacking, what it's crying out for, is a killer down the middle. You know,
very clear
City
to see.
City have got Haaland, Liverpool got Salah, and you know, Havertz has he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, he's German number 9, but I just think they've got that little bit of an advantage in those attacking areas that we haven't got.
Fine margins that make the difference.
It's always a game of fine margins, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's the thing, Graham. It's a game of fine margins. They've gone against us. Hopefully, the next time we do this, they're for us. Graham, this has been fantastic. Even though it's weird because I feel speaking to you, I feel a lot more, not necessarily optimistic about Arsenal, but a lot more happier despite our form. So hopefully, the next time we do this, we're top of the league. We're talking about something feasible, and we're laughing about the concerns we had. Let people know where they can find you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm on X, as Elon Musk says it is. Although I still call it the Bluebird. But,
yeah, it's still Twitter to me as well.
Yeah, it's Graham B 195, or it's Graham _Brooks 1 on Instagram. I not like you. I mean, you do a brilliant show. Your channel's great, mate. And you get the praise you get is well deserved. I don't do anything like that. I do the AFTV Tactical Insight show, but this year we haven't been doing quite so many shows because of the commitment to the Champions League, because the Champions League is on a Tuesday now. They can't fit the show into the schedule so much on a Monday because they've got other stuff to record. So I'm not doing so much of that this year, but I do occasionally AFTV Tactical Insight show. As I've said to you before, you know, I'm 63 this year. If I ever give it up, and I think I will in the next year or so, I think you, with your knowledge of football, would be an ideal person to take the place of me on that show. I think
you're far too kind, Graham, man.
If I could get you on that show, mate, it's not my channel, is it? But I think that you, and to be fair to you, I see you on TalkSport the other week. You did a session. I thought you came across really well on that. I think So yeah, big up yourself because I think you're really good at what you
Appreciate
do.
that,
But yeah, so look, I'm always available to come and talk to you. I do enjoy our chats, and we both want what's
likewise.
best for at the end of the day, we both want what's best for the Arsenal, don't we? So, and I just hope
Exactly.
people who listen to me this afternoon, I'm not negative. I support the team, and nobody cheers for the team more than me. I'm in that stadium. I'll tell you, I'm 63, but I'm like 20, and I'm behind the team. And
Keep it going, man.
and basically, Arsenal's the love of my life. So basically, I just want the team to do well, and I want Arteta to succeed. I love the club. I've always loved the club, and I will love the club to the day I die. And basically, I just want us to be competing at the top level for trophies, and I'd love to see us win a league title. It's been too long.
Facts, man. So yeah, people, I'm sure you lot agree and disagree with a lot of what we've said. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. Don't forget to comment. I'm gonna let Graham enjoy what's left of his day. Unks, it's always appreciative having you here, man. Peace.
Keep doing what you're doing, mate. You're doing it really well.
Appreciate that, and we'll do, Graham, man. Take care of yourself, man.
All the best, man. Take care.
Peace. Oh, that's it. Sorry, folks. We got the outro now.